Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has given a fantastic interview over on The Overlap with Keane, Carragher, Wright, Jill Scott, and Gary Neville. He speaks about his time at Manchester United. And what I want to do in this video is focus on the recruitment side of things. If you want to go and listen to the full interview, the link is in the description. I'd encourage you to do so. But I want to speak about Solskjaer's comments on recruitment, on the scouting process, on who was in charge, on why we didn't sign Erling Haaland for 20 million euros. What about Jude Bellingham? What about Cristiano Ronaldo? I think you'll find this video interesting. And if you want to go and listen to the full interview, the link is in the description. I'd encourage you to do so. Make sure you subscribe if you're new to United People's TV. But I think you're going to enjoy this one, because I certainly will. And I'm going to start here by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer speaking about, you know, when he signed his contract at Manchester United and how he actually kind of wanted to change things.
And when you come in, you agree to, because you sign a contract, you agree to how they want to do it, and you're going to do it to the best of your ability. I tried to change it gradually, little by little, because at times you need to sign young players that you haven't really scouted, or you haven't got 8 reports on or 20 reports on. Little things.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there speaking about Man United's overall recruitment process and how that when it comes to Cristiano Ronaldo, when it comes to the signings that we made and the signings that we missed out on, this is still kind of a broken record which exists at our club. We need to move towards. So basically, what he's saying there, which he goes into a bit more detail in later in the interview, is almost like there was too much information at Manchester United. There were too many holes to jump through. There were too many scouting reports to read. There were too many people involved in the process, and it convoluted it to the point where nobody could sort of trust their own decisions. And that's definitely part of the reason why we didn't sign Erling Haaland, because nobody really trusted Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's recommendation, and nobody followed through on it. I'm going to go back in a little bit more detail later on that one. This second part here, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer speaks about the sort of the difficulties of the actual structure itself.
You sign a deal wherever you take a job, like when you sign up to something, and of course you've got bosses. And it wasn't like David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson, when they two just ran the whole thing. There was more departments above me that I had to go through to get decisions made, and I was happy enough to. So would they?
And that's something I just said there about how poor the man. Like Ed Woodward was so. He had such a massive ego at Man United that he genuinely thought that he knew what he was doing, what he was talking about. And what's actually happened since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer left is kind of the two extremes. We've gone from a manager who has to speak to so many people and run through so many hoops to get a signing done to Erik ten Hag being given sort of full remit on who do you want to sign. And it's just the two ends of the spectrum, neither of which are a sustainable recruitment structure, both of which are broken. And that is why Ratcliffe is bringing in maybe head of recruitment. The whole structure is completely changing. So the good thing is that what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer here is talking about, and the problems that he has had, the problems that have existed under Erik ten Hag, both of those are going to disappear. And this is going to be a sort of a problem of the past. But this definitely impacted how well Solskjaer could do with the recruitment side of things. And this little point here, he goes into a bit more detail on the actual problems of the scouting process. And I think this one's a really interesting little snippet.
This was very thorough, and maybe too thorough. Thorough, yeah. I don't stop speaking English as well, you know, when you're in Norway. And then obviously I come up with names as well when you watch players, but they've got to be really well scouted. And then we sit. And then I've got veto, the scouts got veto, the owner, obviously, who pays,
Those three
pays
vetoes.
the check.
We talked about that a few weeks ago, all about veto, who has the veto. So you're talking about multiple vetoes right the way up the chain.
So I never signed a player that I didn't want.
Okay.
And the scouts never said yes to a player they didn't want. And obviously the owner or Ed, they never signed players that they weren't comfortable signing.
But Ed wouldn't have a veto.
No, Ed didn't.
A financial veto, maybe.
But it was the scouts and the manager.
Geez, how many powers of veto do you possibly want to get inside a recruitment process? It was no wonder United couldn't really make a decision. It was no wonder that United over the last, however many years, it became sort of a parody just how bad United acted in the market, how long we would take to go into a decision, and then at the point where maybe we had to increase the offer by 5 million, how long we would take before that next step was taken. This concept of having power of veto existing at 3 different levels, I mean, surely that's like a recipe for disaster, because you're never really going to get, so you probably would get some, but you're always going to, if it's not Solskjaer who doesn't want to play it, and it's a certain scout who doesn't want to play her, then it's the owner who doesn't want to play her. I remember when Fred came in, when he was signed on the Mourinho, and it always felt, I don't know whether Mourinho's actually talked about this before, but it always felt that Fred was a signing that was made by the club and scouts, because they were like, we've looked at all the data, and this is our guy. Mourinho was like, really? But I don't know whether Mourinho had the power of veto at that point in time. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe this just existed under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But you can hear how convoluted this process is. And Solskjaer speaks about it in a little bit more detail here. Again, on the scouting side of things.
Obviously. And there's multiple lists, and all the scouts, I don't know how many scouts they've employed, but I don't think there's many players they miss. Having reports on.
So they're all on the list, basically.
Yeah, and then they pick 5. Who we're going to sign? Obviously, he will be 100 million, he's 70, he's 50, 30, 20. And then it depends on the budget. And it's all sorts. And then you meet players, and then, I like his attitude, I don't like his attitude.
Now, that part there, like, it's kind of a bit of a running joke, isn't it? Among United fans. Monitoring FC. There's not many players that United miss out on, Solskjaer said there. Not many players that United don't have a scouting report on. And again, it's something that I've felt for a little while. It's almost like United have got so much data, so many scouts, so many scouting reports, so many possibilities that it's overwhelming. That tracker man system that was brought in, I think, by John Murtough, and it's been said there at the time, he goes, there's such a wealth of data, but there's not anybody who has the capability of being able to go through said data, of refining the data, of choosing who we should be signing and choosing who we shouldn't be signing. And again, this is just, it pisses me off, if I'm being completely honest, hearing all this straight from the horse's mouth of a manager who, man, of all of them, I wanted Solskjaer to succeed the most. All of them. Even more than Erik ten Hag. I just wanted it to shine with Solskjaer. Could it have been different recruitment-wise? Yeah, for sure. We wouldn't have spent that first summer chasing Sancho in the way that we did. We would have had alternative targets. We would have had those lists. But apparently we did have those lists, but we didn't really look at them. It's just, what you're hearing here is too many cooks spoil the broth. For sure. And because there wasn't a head chef, it was just loads of junior chefs running around, not really knowing what to do, not really knowing where to add seasoning or do. I don't know why the cooking comparison coming in, or the analogy coming in there, but it makes sense in my head. But ultimately, I think this is going to be the talking point for a lot of people. This is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer explaining all the problems there we've spoken about. He's spoken about, not me. On the recruitment, on who's in charge, who isn't in charge, what gets done. This is the story that's going to make you angry about how United missed out on signing Erling Haaland despite Solskjaer's best efforts.
Before I got here, we're in Manchester.
Yes.
I rang the club, said, you've got to sign this boy. He'll be top, absolutely top class. That was June, July 18. And they said, no, they had enough reports. So, okay, no problem. Then I become the temporary or caretaker. Then we'd sold him to Salzburg. I tell the club straight away, buy him straight away before he plays for them. Because he didn't play for them for 3 or 4 months. Just sign him now because he's got a release clause. Yeah. We knew that. Because we knew, and no one else then would have paid that money.
What kind of money would it have been?
20 million euros. So...
bargain.
Yeah.
Ian Wright's face. Can we zoom in on that? €20 million for Erling Haaland. And by the way, he would have jumped at the chance. That's simply Ole Gunnar Solskjaer explaining that despite his best efforts, despite him being the manager that managed Erling Haaland, and he knew Manchester United inside out in terms of what it meant to be a Manchester United player, that Man United scouts, through all their work, go, nah, we know more than you do. And that sort of, I don't know whether you call that an egotistical approach. I don't know how you would define Man United missing out on Erling Haaland, but it's basically, it's criminal. You got a manager there who managed him for 2 years, who knew United and what it meant to be and what it took to be a United player. Go and sign him. Sometimes it's not just about data. It's always about it's about a blend. You need the eye test as much as you need the data, and you need to combine both of them. But that face from Ian Wright says absolutely everything. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually went on to speak at separate points during this interview about how Man United pulled the red carpet out for Jude Bellingham. Cantona was there, Robson was there, Fergie was there. We did everything. But at a 17-year-old, he knew that he wanted to get X amount of first-team minutes, and United couldn't promise that, so he couldn't come. And then Cristiano Ronaldo being signed, and how that was basically an opportunity that the club didn't want to miss out on. And yeah, our style of play changed. That was the recruitment that changed the point, anyway, for me, that it all changed with Solskjaer. But I love Ole, man. I always have. I always will. I remember the end. It was horrible. But hearing him there speaking about how convoluted the process was at Manchester United, how many scouts he had to speak to, how many hundreds of reports that he had to run through, the power of veto that existed with Solskjaer and the scouts and the owners, and how the whole recruitment process operated. You can see how we miss out on players like Erling Haaland. You can see how we miss out and we misdirect ourselves. This all needs to completely change. It is and has been a broken recruitment structure for so long. And to hear Ole Gunnar Solskjaer speak about it, he's not throwing anyone under the bus. It's not his way. It's not his style. He's not going to name names and say, well, you were crap at your job. But it was broken. It has been broken and it needs to change. And if we miss out on anybody like Erling Haaland again for man, that's going to be a transfer that haunts United for a good few more years yet. It's good to hear Ole speaking about it, and I want to know what you think about it in the comments below, as always.